Hi, this is Jessie Silverman here with Big Blue Canopy, and I wanted to share with you today some of my favorite speech and language activities that you can use at home. I understand that not everybody will have the same materials that I use, but I just wanted to share some of my go-tos. If you do happen to have them in your home, that can be helpful during this time to target some of those speech and language skills. And I'll try to also give you ideas if you don't have the materials that you can try. So I'll briefly go over the first three slides. I did focus on these on my first Facebook Live presentation at Big Blue Canopy, but I'll still kind of brush over them in case you missed that. Fun with bubbles. So bubbles are one of my favorite things to use with kids because they can be very motivating and it's a very simple activity to work on at home. They're very motivating for kids. You can work on facilitating that lip rounding skill while you're blowing bubbles. So if your kids are doing like that flat blowing like that, trying to just give them, facilitate that lip rounding where the lips are going in a circle, because that's essential and needed for those W sounds, those O sounds, those oo sounds, the rounded vowels, and then also straw drinking. So that's a very good skill for kids to work on when they're pretending or when they're blowing the bubbles or just blowing the bubbles off the wand. You can work on requesting. So if they're at a single word level, bubble, please, more, up, down. If they're at a 2-word level, more bubbles, bubbles, please, open bubbles, please, for like a 3-word phrase level, and then moving into longer sentences containing 4 to 5 words. Like, I want more bubbles, please, or open the bubbles, please. And then you can also target where questions while describing where the bubbles go when they pop. Like, where did they go? They went up in the sky or they went down on the floor. And then you can also work on having kids make the bubbles dance. Like if you catch them on the wand to work on like that H sound or sounds that require airflow. Like sometimes even when I'm working on like the F sound, like, oh yeah, blow the air, or when you're working on that H, if they're struggling with getting some of those sounds that require airflow. Down on the farm, so I shared that the farm toys are very helpful when working on speech and language skills. A lot of the animal sounds are good to model for some of those younger children that are not quite using true words because they're very simple consonant vowel combinations. So like neigh, moo, ba. You can also work on following directions with the animals. So like put the cow in the barn, just a basic 1-step, and then moving into more complex, like embedding spatial concepts, like first put the cow on top of the barn, then put the pig under the fence. So you can make them more difficult as the skill level increases for your children. You can ask open-ended questions during play, like the who, what, where, when, why questions. So like, what is the pig eating? Where is the farmer? Why did they go to sleep? Because they were tired. And you can also target verbs and action words during these activities by asking those what doing questions. So what is the pig doing? And just pretending to make them eat, run, drink, swim. He is eating, he is drinking, she is swimming. And you can work on requesting, you know, going from the single words to phrases to longer sentences with this, depending on what level of performance your child is at. And then you can work on also describing the animals. So like the color, the size, the parts of the animals. And you can also work on comparing and contrasting the animals, like what makes them similar, what makes them different. And then Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head are very good for identifying and labeling body parts and clothing items. They're great for working on pronouns, especially if you have both, because you can do the masculine and feminine pronouns, he versus she, his versus hers, him versus her. You can work on following directions with the various pieces. So like first put on the nose, then put on the mouth. You can work on targeting colors with the different pieces too, like find something that's yellow, find something that's blue. You can also talk about the functions of the various body parts or clothing items, like we wear shoes so we can go outside, or we listen with our ears. And also those action words and verbs, you can pretend to make the Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head do different things, like he is jumping, she is eating, he is sleeping. And you can also work on emotions by creating different faces, like he is happy because he's smiling, she is sad because she's frowning. And now for some more activities that I have not gone over yet that I go to a lot during speech therapy. Dollhouse setups can be very helpful for working on a variety of speech and language activities. Like I said, if you have like the male and female dolls, you can work on those pronouns. You can work on where questions by hiding one of the figures in different areas, like where is he sitting? He's in the kitchen. Oh, now where is she sleeping? She is in the bed. You can follow directions with the different pieces to the dollhouse. So like first put the dad in the chair, then put the mom in the bathtub. So they have to listen for the locations that you tell them. So those are like the more complex multi-step directions. You can target verbs and actions while making the people do different things in the house. Like the mom is cooking food, the dad is watching television, the baby is playing, so they can get that exposure to those ing verbs. You can discuss the functions of various pieces of furniture and household items, like why do we need an oven? Because we have to cook food. Why does she need a lamp? So she can see. So they start to understand the functions of objects around the house. And if you don't have a dollhouse, you can do this with your actual house too. But you can also work on categorizing items by sorting. So like get all of the pets together, get all of the furniture together, get all of the food, get all of the people, so they can start to understand those categories and how they can group things together. And then requesting, obviously requesting we can do with all of these activities, but you can work on that single word level, like doll, please, baby, into like the phrases, I want more, or put on in baby. And then the longer sentences, like I see a baby, or I see the mom. And you can also have kids work on the sequencing and retell of different household activities or chores using that first and then language, like, oh, how the boy needs to get ready for bed. What should he do? How should he get ready? Well, first he needs to go brush his teeth, and then he needs to take a bath, and then he has to dry off, and then he puts his jammies on, then he reads a book, and last he goes to sleep, just so they can start working on some of that sequencing and retell using that first and then language. Baby dolls are very helpful to work on a variety of speech and language activities. Like I said, those sequences, you can act out sequences with the baby, like, oh, the baby needs a bath. How should we give her a bath? And have your child help you act out some of those steps. Like first we need to fill the tub with water, then we put her in the bath, and then we wash her with soap, and then we dry her off with a towel. Like I said, it'll be helpful with doing that retell and that first then language. You can also model various language concepts during play, like, oh, the baby is cold, she needs a blanket. The baby's dirty, she needs a bath. The baby is wet, she needs a towel. Just so they start getting the exposure to those language concepts. So like cold, dirty should be highlighted, and wet. You can also work on those masculine and feminine pronouns during play with the baby doll. So like he versus she, his, hers. And then also working on identifying those body parts and clothing items on the baby doll will be helpful for those younger kids who are not quite sure or haven't mastered that yet. And actions and verbs, you can make the baby do various things and have the child respond like, what is she doing? She is eating food, to get those ing verbs. And you can model requests by giving those single words to phrases to sentences. So like single words being baby, eat, mama. Phrases, my baby, hi mama. Or sentences, I want to hold baby. And then you can also work on emotions, discuss the emotions with the baby. Like, oh, she's laughing because she's happy, or oh, the baby is crying because she is sad. So you can discuss those with children too and model them. Planes, trains, and automobiles, these are very popular, especially with some of my younger little boys. They can be very motivating when prompting for communication. So you can work on modeling those single words to requests, to phrases, to sentences. You can work on those prepositions and spatial concepts while you're playing. So like the car is driving down the ramp or the train is on top of the bridge, just to give them that exposure to some of those prepositional phrases like on top, under, inside. You can also sort and categorize the vehicles. So like put a pile of all the trucks together and then put all the cars together and then all the buses and then all the trains. So they can start to understand like what makes them fall in the same group together or what the similarities could be. And you can also compare and contrast the different vehicles. So like what makes the bus and the car the same? They both have wheels. What makes them different? The bus is longer. You can discuss the functions of the vehicles. So like discussing a school bus takes children to school. The fire truck helps when there is an emergency. So they can start understanding some of the various functions of different vehicles they see out on the road. You can discuss the parts of the vehicle to understand like that part whole relationship. So the bus has wheels, it has a window, it has a steering wheel. And you can also work on labeling colors with the different vehicles. So having them, if they're at a point where they're actually labeling the colors or just identifying, like find all the yellow, find all the red. And you can also embed a lot of the verbs during play to increase their language exposure to these. So like push the car, stop the car, drive the car, fly the plane, ride the train. And you can also embed some of those language concepts while you're describing the vehicles during play. So like big versus little, fast versus slow, tall versus short. Fun with food, play kitchens. These are very popular too with a lot of kids to work on those embedded language concepts. So pretend play with food can be fun. You can use your actual kitchen and actual food items if you don't have a pretend one. But you can embed a lot of verbs with this. So like cut the fruit, eat the cake, pour the milk, cook the meat, fry the egg. So giving them that exposure to those verbs and action words. You can also target where questions while putting various food items in different locations of the kitchen, like hiding the cup, like, oh, where is it now? It's in the microwave. Oh, now where is it? It's on the stove, or it's under the table. You can also work on categorizing and sorting food items. So like fruits versus vegetables, meats, dairy, frozen foods, desserts, just so they can start understanding that grouping and what makes some of the things similar and versus different. And then you can also act out different sequences for the different activities. So like have the child retell steps using that first and then language. So like what are the steps involved with loading the dishwasher? First we have to put the dishes in, then we have to add the soap, then we push the button, and then we have to unload it and dry off the dishes. Or making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, actually acting out the steps involved with that. And also a fun speech activity. Many food items are multi-syllable words, and I have a lot of kids where they will omit some of those syllables when it's like a 3-syllable word. So like nana for banana or tato for potato. So you can work on like tapping out those sounds like potato, blueberries. There's a lot of food items that are 3-syllable or 4-syllable words, avocado. So that's all very helpful when there's kids that are deleting some of those syllables in multisyllabic words. Marble towers are very popular and very motivating for kids to work on speech and language skills. So a lot of times with my younger kiddos who aren't really talking yet, I will use those predictable, commonly used phrases as like a fill in the blanks, like ready, set, and then just kind of pausing until they give me go. or, you know, after pausing for a few seconds, if they don't give it to you, like making the go like, go, and then dropping the marble in so they understand like, oh, well, I have to give that word go for her to drop the ball in. So that cause and effect relationship. Working on requests for the action of dropping the ball in the tower. So like if they're at a single word level, like ball, go, please, more, up, down. Moving into phrases like go blue ball, and sentences, I want the ball, please. And then you can also work on following directions. So if they understand colors, you can do first then directions, like first put on the yellow piece, then put on a red piece. And you can also work on the various spatial concepts by showing like, oh, the red piece is under the blue piece, or the yellow piece is on top of the green piece. And those early spatial concepts for younger kids, like put in, take out, put on, take off, you can work on those with this activity as well. Guess Who is a popular game that I use with my older kiddos, but it's very helpful in targeting question formulation. So if your child has difficulty formulating questions using the correct grammar, you can work on asking questions during this game. So like, does your person have glasses? Is your person a boy? So that is helpful with formulating those questions using correct grammar. You can also target the masculine and feminine pronouns with the males and females on the game. So he versus she, his, her, him, her, they, their, them. You can describe people's features using adjectives. So the girl has curly hair, he has straight hair, he is bald. And also the emotions on people's faces, describing people's expressions. So like, he is excited because his eyebrows are raised, or he is mad because his eyebrows are down. So those are all things that you can work on with their expressions. I use this a lot if I'm working on articulation targets during like a structured conversation while they're answering questions. So like if I'm working on R's past like the sentence level, but I'm not quite to general conversation, I will use this game. So having them mark all of their R's in a target. So like, does your person have red hair? So they have to remember to mark all of those sounds. So it's very helpful with that structured conversation for speech targets too. Headbands is a game that I play a lot with my kids. It's helpful with formulating questions. So this game, you have to figure out what the card is. You have to figure out what card is on your head that you can't see by asking the other players questions. So do I have wings? Can I fly? So it's helpful with formulating those questions if they have trouble getting the grammar correct when they're formulating questions in general conversation. You can have your child describe items on the card, like, oh, this is a type of animal that flies. So they have to provide all those descriptions for an item. You can work on categorizing and sorting items on the picture card. So like, find all the animals, find all the clothing items, find all of the food. And this is also helpful too for targeting those articulation sounds during a structured speech task. So like if you were targeting S, like, does your item make sounds? So making sure that they get all of those targets when they're asking the questions or answering the questions. So not quite to that general conversation level, but still structured enough where they're focused on, oh, okay, every S I have to remember to keep my tongue in. So those are a lot of my speech activities, my go-tos that I like to use during therapy. So hopefully if you have access to some of these activities in the home, you can find some fun and helpful activities to help with improve your children's speech and language skills. Thanks for hanging out with me today.